presentation and half an hour of questions. And we started recording.
I'm sorry. Thank you for the reminder, Melanie.
Our speaker for today is Mr. Jose Diaz, who is the regional director in Indiana for Senator Todd Young. And where are you, Jose? I see the flag behind you. Are you in Washington or are you?
I am here in our great Hoosier state. I am located right now in our Northwestern District office.
Okay. Is that Valparaiso?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious. Jose is a native of Indiana, and he's been in the Coast Guard for 8 years. He was instrumental in performing numerous maritime law enforcement and search and rescue activities. Upon concluding his military career, he attended the University of California, Berkeley, getting a degree in political science. And he moved back here to Indiana and has continued his service career by being a congressional staff appointee to the office of U.S. Senator Todd Young. And in this capacity, he serves as the key liaison to municipal and state government, local businesses, civic organizations, economic development partners, and constituent groups throughout 10 counties in Indiana. Along with his public service responsibility, he also serves in various volunteer roles for nonprofits such as United Way, Paladin Incorporated, and the American Legion Post and the YMCA. So he's a very busy man, and we're very thankful that he's come to talk to us today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Jose and thank him for coming, and thank you for everybody for coming.
Well, thank you all very much for extending the invitation and the opportunity to engage and have a conversation with the League of Women Voters. I will actually, in a couple of hours, short hours here, will be meeting with some of you all in person over in the Hammond Federal Court building for that very special occasion that the immigration naturalization ceremony those are. And yeah, so I am always fascinated when I see the league out there in the community all across the state doing the most vital mission, right, in getting individuals involved civically and educating them about the importance of participating and in our government, our local and county and state government, federal government. So it's important, and I've certainly enjoyed those conversations, and so I don't take it lightly. Thank you so much for giving me another opportunity to connect here. I thought, well, maybe I'll try to very quickly provide a snapshot of our office, because sometimes that's helpful to understand where all the pieces are in a congressional office, most specifically here in a Senate congressional office. And then I'll go over a very sort of 15,000-foot overview of some of the senator's legislative priorities and his committee assignments. And we'll go there, and I'll try to take questions as they come about. If there's something that I cannot answer, I will be happy to follow up and provide a more detailed answer to that question, because there's federal government is every day is a different day and different issues oftentimes, and it's fast moving. Although we like to think of our federal government as a sort of a slow moving cruise ship, there are a lot of things that happen at the federal level that are sometimes difficult to keep up with. So we do our best. So in any event, so our our office, a senator's office generally consists of the state team and the DC team. And here in state, serving on his congressional staff here in the state, we have representatives across regional directors across the state, in the northern, central, southern areas of the state, and we have a fantastic casework team. So we work, as previously mentioned, we work as the key liaison to various groups across our respective communities. So I appreciate those engagements and being helpful to some of our great municipal leaders, such as our mayors, our county council members, our commissioners, and such. And we help in so many different ways. So and I'll just kind of notate a couple things that come about during over the course of our week. When our municipal leaders are working hard in obtaining funding, for example, right? Federal funding, we are a resource for some of our municipal leaders and our nonprofits in that regard, right? When there's a grant opportunity, it helps to connect with our congressional leaders and see if they're willing to provide a letter of support for some of those competitive grant applications, and they have really significant effects, especially when we have a town or a city that's able to, or a nonprofit that's able to land some federal dollars and bring it here home to help improve the lives of our great Hoosier residents, right? So grant funding, really, really big, important role that we play. We also work very hard with listening to the concerns of our residents, right? Our Hoosier leaders, our community members, and understanding what are some of the issues that are unique to some of our respective regions across the state, and keeping the senator and his DC legislative staff up to speed of what is happening here across our state. Natural disasters, right? We've seen tornadoes and such really have some calamitous effects across different parts of our state. And so those are instances in which we have to react very quickly to provide the necessary resources to help address those very serious issues. Public speaking events. I was just at an event yesterday at the Dunes National Park. Fantastic asset that we have in the Dunes National Park. They are doing some tremendous things, but they are kicking off a restoration event for one of their historic landmarks there, the House of Tomorrow. I think the news have just published some media press on that particular event, and I had the opportunity to provide remarks on behalf of the senator. He could not attend due to his legislative responsibilities in DC, but so that's where I come in play to provide those remarks and to commemorate those special occasions. So those are just a couple of examples, along with the other stuff, right? Federal issues. You have an issue with a federal agency, whether it's a veteran, an individual constituent dealing with an issue with with the VA, for example, claims, compensation issues, or if you're traveling overseas and you have passport issues, right? Our casework team provides casework support to many, many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of Hoosiers every single year. So it helps to have a good contact in our office, so we can help remedy those issues that may come about. Social Security, VA, etc. So that's our team. We work hand in hand with our DC team. We often engage with each other through various Zoom staff calls over the course of our weeks and our months here. So that's our team. I have a quick little short PowerPoint just to kind of give you that I'll follow. There's not probably about a dozen, maybe 10 or 12 slides. So I want to share that with you. We'll go from there. So let me find that. Let me see here. Okay. Let's see. Share my screen here. Okay. Okay. Can you all see it? Okay, fantastic. All right, here we go. So, a little bit about the senator. He was elected in 2010. He was Indiana's ninth congressional district down in southern Indiana. In the Senate, he was elected in 2016 and reelected in 2022. So he is not up for reelection until 2028. So we are at a point in this term, very early in this term, where we can certainly concentrate on some of the and many of the legislative issues, and not necessarily have to have that sort of thought of campaign activities and such. Not that we're involved in those activities, but it does necessitate additional work on the part of the elected official. Let me move here. Graduate of Carmel High School, so they're down in Central Indiana. He's a Naval Academy graduate, but served in the Marine Corps. After following his graduation from the Naval Academy, those individuals have the option to go either into the Navy as an officer or get a commission there in the Marine Corps. He went the Marine route. He holds an MBA from the University of Chicago, a JD from Indiana University McKinney School of Law, and his committee assignments. So these are his much of his legislative work will likely fall in one of these four buckets. He spends a great deal of time on foreign relations, because he's sitting on the Senate Committee of Foreign Relations, finance as well, commerce, science and transportation, small business and entrepreneurship. So, our senators, they're given specific assignments, and they sort of work as the subject matter sort of experts on some of these areas. They spend a lot of their time there on the Hill on many of these issues, these particular areas here. So just looking at foreign relations, just thinking about what we have seen over the course of the past couple of years, right? With the Russian invasion over into Ukraine, with the looking over into Taiwan and China, and that dynamic that in that particular region, and Israel, right, and Palestine. So these are some couple of issues that really has taken quite a bit of attention on a geopolitical scale. The senator is in support of funding Ukraine. He is in support of supporting Taiwan and preventing a potential invasion on the part of China. And in Israel, he has expressed a strong support of our ally there in the Middle East. Nevertheless, all of these issues are very, very difficult and very challenging issues to try to develop solutions to. So all that to say, it's a pretty weighty responsibility on that, serving on that committee in just a couple of areas that that's taken a lot of our media attention here. Finance, commerce, I said commerce, science, transportation, small business. We enjoy getting behind some of these new initiatives, some of these growing technology and entrepreneurial sort of endeavors that the state is doing. So and I'll share some of the legislative initiatives that sort of fall in that area as well. Any thoughts or questions? I'll pause momentarily here. If not, I'll keep strolling along. I won't try to take up too much time here, but I'll just want to provide this sort of quick overview, and we can certainly chat following this here.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regarding your work in transportation, that's been something that has been very topical recently, and with a former Hoosier, once a Hoosier, always a Hoosier, as the head of the transportation department, if you will, at the federal level. To what extent does Senator Young and Secretary Buttigieg talk to each other, work together?
Yeah, great question. Well, when you think about transportation, I'm thinking about, what comes to mind here. I'm thinking about some of the work with aviation, right? When we're with the FAA reauthorization, which is a very important piece of legislation there to support some of the needed initiatives there at a federal level as it relates to aviation and transportation. Now, I would say that his role on the committee really is to deliberate and offer and analyze some of these pieces of legislation there and how that impacts, our state. His relationship with Secretary Buttigieg, I'm not aware of any recent dialogue. Usually, Secretary Buttigieg or any other cabinet leader, it's at that level, I would say that we don't necessarily see a whole lot of engagement. It happens, but his role there in the House is to see what are the needs, and do what's best in advocating for the things that will help Indiana sort of move forward. So I can't think of any recent instances in which I remember them two together on any of these legislative matters. But if I do come across, I'd be happy to provide that. Sorry, I hope that's kind of okay. Good. Priorities and interests. I put Chips and Science Act, and that kind of leading off with that because there are a lot of things that is coming down the pike here as it relates to the Chips and Science Act. Everything is from life sciences, AI, technology. We are quite literally seeing in our state a significant amounts of private investment as a result of some of the federal funding that's being appropriated to some of these areas here. So I think, and especially as it relates to Northern Indiana, right? St. Joe Lake, or even going out to Northeast Indiana in the Fort Wayne region, we are seeing, and we will continue to see we'll continue to see significant investments in things such as semiconductor manufacturing facilities. We'll see other components as it relates to such as the life sciences. Certainly in the central Indiana has really gotten a lot of attention in that regard. And what that means is jobs, right? Jobs and opportunity for Hoosiers. So we're very proud of what the Chips and Science Act is and what it's going to continue to do in helping us move forward here domestically. That bill, he had to hang with that bill or at least this particular bill for a number of years. It started off as the Endless Frontier Act, then it sort of went through another iteration, and the name changed to the Innovation and Competitions Act, and then eventually the Chips and Science Act. So some of these bills, they really cross over into a number of Congresses before they actually, or years for that matter, before they actually become law. So he's hung with it, but we are happy to see that and see President Biden sign that there into law. And I have a short video that I'll also sort of showcase on that particular bill. Affordable housing. Last year, we crisscrossed the state. You may have seen some of the press releases on it. We crisscross every corner of the state, highlighting three particular housing bills that he has helped co-sponsor here in this 118th Congress. I'll also, in a following slide, I'll kind of discuss some of those housing bills very briefly and what the impact will be. Entrepreneurship, small business growth, I mentioned that earlier. That is certainly a key priority of his. National security and advanced manufacturing. So as it relates to the CHIPS and Science Act, this is having tremendous impacts as it relates to our education, workforce development, and this is all in that legislation. It's a $280 billion piece of legislation with so many components, so many different areas, investments into education, into our workforce, investments into new and emerging technologies, tech hubs. So there's the federal tech hub, which Indiana is the home of, I believe, two right now that were designated. You have the Central Indiana Tech Hub, and a designation by the federal government. And you have this northwestern Chicago sort of bi-state tech hub. That the one in Central is really a focus on the life science component, whereas this western one they're researching, their efforts are more predicated upon quantum computing, which don't ask me what quantum computing is or explain it, but it sounds nevertheless fascinating to sort of hear some of those research efforts and their efforts to want to help build out this corridor, if you will, across northern Indiana. Semiconductor manufacturing, multi-million-dollar investments here has taken place here in our state to build semiconductors. And we have seen over the course of the pandemic that become a serious issue that has affected literally everyone. If you were trying to buy a car, new cars, there are many that were affected, couldn't do so because auto facilities were down due to semiconductor chip shortages. Anything that has an on and off switch, you likely has some sort of chip component to it, and that was certainly a very serious issue, supply chain issue over the course of this past couple of years. So let me see if this will play. I don't know if I'm sorry, I went back. I don't know if it will. And I'm not having an issue here. I don't think I'll be able to play this here, and that's unfortunate because it's a really insightful clip. But that's okay. That's okay. I'll see if I can get it to work. I'll circle back around to it. The senator put together a video here. He only speaks for about 2 minutes or so, discussing more his thoughts on the CHIPS and Science Act. But I think we're good to go. We'll move forward here. I mentioned affordable housing. There are three particular bills that is in this Congress. We have what's called the Yes in My Backyard Act, also known as YIMBY. We have the Affordable Housing Improvement Act, the Neighborhoods, Homes, and Investment Act, and this Family Stability and Opportunities Vouchers Act. So very quickly, the YIMBY Act, it helps provide some additional oversight and prevents from discriminatory discriminatory sort of zoning practices and such. So we want to see municipalities get become more transparent as it relates to development and this is a play on the NIMBY sort of sentiment that we know, not in my backyard. Well, sometimes there's that issue of certain municipalities not wanting certain types of housing, right, in their particular locality. And so what we are wanting or hoping to do is to see what some of these barriers are and to ensure that there aren't anything sort of from a discriminatory component is being factored in, and why certain lots of land maybe are not zoned for medium or high density housing, for example. Just as an example. So this YIMBY Act helped provide it's going to provide more openness in that regard. The Affordable Housing Improvement Act this helps sort of this bill provides tax incentives to redevelopment of old and blighted homes, and it provides a sort of price cap on what those homes can be sold for once they've been renovated, for example. So we want to still make sure that those homes are still affordable, but again, tax incentives to those developers and such that are that identify some of these old blighted homes and are able to make those improvements to put them back on the market there. And it's estimated that this bill will help really create an impact in the supply of homes here in our state. So we're happy to see that in our Congress. We're hoping it crosses the finish line. Neighborhood Homes Investment Act is an expansion of the low income tax credit. So that's another bill that's been important for many of our housing community leaders here in our state. And the Family Stability and Opportunities Vouchers Act allows for mobility as it relates to housing vouchers, right? So young ones being able to, and those families with young kids, being able to identify, take those sort of housing vouchers with them and move into communities with better school systems to provide more opportunity, certainly academic opportunity for those little ones there, as it relates to their K-12 education. Hoosiers jobs workforce. So again, very quickly here to highlight some of the workforce components and how he's supporting our Hoosiers. The early, we have seen in this again, these issues I hear about them every week. Where are we don't have our child care pre-K sort of facilities or daycare facilities. These individuals who are working these jobs, sometimes sometimes their pay is an issue or licensing accreditation. So he's wanting to help provide some more standardization in that respect and help give these individuals an opportunity to obtain license credentials that will help them as they continue or begin and continue their careers in early childhood education. So that's what this the Early Educators Apprenticeship Act will help do. In light of early child care, the After Hours Child Care Act provides grant funding to our states to identify areas in which they could expand or pilot different programs that will put childcare or provide childcare in non-traditional hours, right? So we're not thinking of our 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 hours, but hours that are weekends, that are late evenings for even nights sometimes. How can we help get behind growth and progress in that particular area? Because many Americans, many Hoosiers are working. They don't work a traditional work schedule, and childcare access is an obstacle. So this is what this bill is designed to help make some improvements on. The Merit Act is a bill that he has, and then let me just say this real quick. Many of his bills, you'd be hard pressed to not find a Democratic co-sponsor. He often works with our Democratic leaders in other states in introducing and getting support behind many of these legislative issues. So I'm happy to see that. I think it's just a testament of that sort of bipartisan aspect of government that maybe sometimes we find difficult to see in Capitol Hill, but the senator is certainly very engaged with his Democratic colleagues on the Hill. So many of these bills has Democratic support as well. The Merit Bill, here is the bill that will end legacy admissions. So you're thinking about how can we create more parity for those who don't have family members that went to some of our nation's leading academic universities, right? And so ending legacy admissions because legacy admissions relations gives others a boost up in terms of admissions into some of these institutions based on familial sort of components and not necessarily maybe their own individual merit. So we want to see that more parity in that regard. Small Business Technological Advancement Act, another bill that will help provide funding to small businesses with some of their technology and startup costs in some of those things they need to kind of get their business off the ground. So always supporting small business, always trying to do work that helps give Hoosiers, give Americans access and resources to living their best lives, if you will, to put it plainly.
Jose, can I ask a question here quickly?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, Melanie.
These bills that you're running through with housing and this additional one and business and so forth, are they have any of them been passed, or are they just plans right now that he's working on with other people?
As it relates to the housing bills, I'll quickly jump on that one. His affordable housing bills have not passed. They've been introduced. Some of these bills that I referenced have had committee have some of them even committee markup. So you think when you have a bill, these bills got to go to their respective. They're assigned to a committee, so they're heard in a small group of leaders. That so if it's for example if it's veterans, right, a bill regarding veteran affairs, there's those members that deliberate upon veteran affairs, and they hear these bills, and if it can get out of committee and passed out of committee, they're ultimately put on the docket, potentially, to be heard on the floor. And so when I say some of them have just been introduced, some of them have maybe had discussions in committee, but are still there. I don't think any, as it relates to the housing bills, from my most recent check, anything has gotten out of committee. I could be wrong. I'd have to double check that. But so, and all this to say, it's not abnormal or it's not uncommon for legislation to persist through a Congress, and when the new Congress before the new Congress is sworn in. So we'll be going into the 119th Congress after this year. Those bills, anything that's been introduced by any member of Congress ultimately dies, right? But those bills are often reintroduced. So some of it really comes down to timing. Some of it, the composition of Congress. The next Congress can certainly have an impact too, if those bills that may not have passed the finish line, but they're reintroduced, and sometimes the stars align that really you can see something fast track its way through and to the president's desk. It just in our federal government, things are very dynamic, and there's a lot of variables at play. But all this to say, we're hopeful for these housing bills. They are on his. It's a priority of his. And if they, for some reason, are not, they do not ultimately be, if they're not ultimately signed into law, I have no doubt that these bills we'll continue to see iterations of them, if not the same ones, maybe reintroduced at a later time. So,
okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. The Bipartisan Safer Community Act, another fascinating a bill. When I say fascinating, in the sense that very comprehensive in the areas it really covers. This here was a contentious bill that was signed a couple years ago. And I guess for those, for some, they refer to it as a gun control bill. For others, it's an investment in mental health. And then for people that are, I guess it depends. So we heard a lot of just challenging, contentious opinions on this here. The senator ultimately supported it. I mean, it was a bill that has invested and will continue to invest significant amounts of federal funding in making sure our schools, our K through 12 public schools, are provided with the necessary resources to keep them safe. When you think about red flag laws, right? Indiana already has a red flag law, but it also helps touch on that for states that do not have red flag laws. It helps provide other significant amount of funding to mental health programs that will, whether that be training, staff training, and other ways in which those dollars can help some of our mental health providers here in state sort of grow and provide the necessary healthcare, mental health care to our residents. So a bill, I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive bill. I can talk about it probably all day, but happy to loop back around to that if there's something specific in that regard. But all to say, funding, mental health funding, hardening in our schools. It also addresses the aspects of purchasing a firearm and the background check that will be necessitated and such. So that's law there. So that was President Biden signed that. I want to say 22. I don't have the date off the top of my head here, but it's most recent. When I say most recent, past couple of years. Modernizing our
question.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does he stand in regard to banning automatic weapons?
Well, automatic weapons are they're already federally regulated, right? They're federally regulated in the sense that the only time an individual is able to obtain something that's an automatic firearm, is something that they have to go through an extensive process with the ATF and obtain the appropriate licensing or approval to even own something that is capable of automatic fire. I understand that there are probably devices out there that people utilize to modify those firearms to discharge numerous rounds when someone utilizes a weapon with pulling the trigger and discharges the number of automatic fire. Those to my knowledge should not. I mean, that's illegal to do. So I think if we're looking at what's the thought on that? I mean, anything that kind of modification absolutely shouldn't happen, and we stand opposed to that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wasn't there a ban on it at one time from the Clinton administration, and that it expired and that it was not renewed? And I'm wondering what his position on that was. See, that was different. That was a ban that was already in place that expired.
Yeah. I think what you're referring to is you're referring to that bill that prevented certain types of firearms. So not necessarily automatic. I think it was called that, but it prevented something that entailed or that included that looked like sort of AR-15 style firearms, along with maybe others that were on that list. And I haven't seen that resurrected or in the form of a bill as of late or and such. So I couldn't provide the right now where do we stand on that at the moment. I'm happy to follow up with you though.
Okay.
Support are some other bills that I just wanted to kind of put here again to highlight. When you're looking at, we're thinking about career technical education. He has a bill that known as the Strengthening Career and Technical Education 21st Century Act, a bill that helps provide more again, all to say provide more federal resources in supporting everything from high school students being able to obtain college credit during over the course of their high school years for college, to create more pathways into the trades, which has been an issue and it still is an issue, trying to get more increase the number of applicants, the work pool, if you will, into those critical career fields. So he recognizes that sometimes the 4-year degree isn't necessarily one that is appropriate for everyone. Well, how can we help incentivize and create a more opportunity for those that might consider some of the great paying jobs of our trades? So that's a very fascinating bill and is still doing some tremendous things here across our state. Other opportunities, this is my last slide here. Other opportunities across, just to highlight some investments. Indiana's home to a hydrogen hub designation. It's a $1 billion federal investment. And this is mostly in the northwestern part of Indiana, but it will stretch out and likely have effects across north central and southern. When I say southern, I mean south of Lake, Porter, and LaPorte likely. And this is an investment that will help create more or reduce our carbon footprint, and by way of preventing some of these CO2 emissions from being emitted into the air and capturing that on the front end, right? So where that again, when thinking about how do we help kind of make sure that we have an environment that is more hospitable from a health component, right? Public health side even. And that's certainly something that will help get some good work done. I talked about the technology hubs there. We're home to a couple of technology hubs, $10 billion investment if that funding is approved here for those round 2 applications. In other investments, we have Meta investing $800 million, just shy of $1 billion there, and multi-billion-dollar investments in semiconductor chip production. And I mentioned previously the quantum tech and biosciences sort of R&D aspect of what's taking place in our state. Now, we'll say lastly, the senator sits on he's one of only about 4 handful of lawmakers that's on this commission for new and emerging biotechnology, biosciences, if you will. And it's a group of experts that are researching how aspects of our sciences, right, whether it's ag science or quantum and such, how these new technologies, or even AI, if you will, artificial intelligence, how these technology, what are the implications from a national security standpoint? What are some things that can help make sure that we, as a country, we are leveraging our technology and we're making sure that we're keeping our nation safe from any global threat. I'm going to task you all. I have a request for any of you all here. You're in North Central here. The senator sits on what's called, and this is a video, but I can't play it here. My videos are not playing. But if you all happen to be come across any small businesses that individually wrap sort of candy, we would be interested in learning how we can possibly obtain some so we can provide. On the Senate floor, there's a longstanding tradition. There near one of the entrances, there's a desk, and the senator who sits at this desk is tasked with providing home goods, something from their home state, individually wrapped candy. It could be chocolate, it could be others, just individually wrapped chocolate, keeping it stocked in that desk. And it's been a tradition that goes back to, I think, the 60s. And the Senator Young is at that case, he's been assigned to that candy desk. So we have been shipping out Hoosier wrapped candy, and we are still looking for more. So if you happen to know if there's a small business that comes to mind that would like to also be notating some of our press releases about from their donation to this candy desk, we happy to provide a spotlight for that business and work something out where we can obtain and ship it there and put it on the Hill. So just keep that in mind, and shoot me an email if there's should a business come to mind. Happy to try to facilitate something there.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions? There's so much information here that it's hard to know where to start. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Jose, could you go back to the interstate child foster care issue and explain that to me? Modernizing the interstate. I'm a CASA, and I'd be interested in knowing more about that particular legislative work.
Yeah, so that is one designed to prevent or at least speed up the time in which we can in which you have a foster child, to get them to put in a home. So when you look at different states, there's oftentimes a delay, and this is not good for the child looking for a place that they can a safe place to live and stay temporarily. So this is a bill that will help sort of provide some updates into some of the maybe even bureaucratic counterproductive ways in which you have a foster youth, and you're trying to get them housed in another state even. So trying to help streamline that process so as to reduce the impact on that youth, and to get them in a safe place as soon as possible. So then we see that sometimes there's some barriers in accomplishing that, and the longer you have a youth in sort of this limbo and such a difficult this going through a difficult situation, we realize that's not a good thing, and we want to help make sure that we're doing what we can to help speed that process up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody else with a question?
I just wanted to reiterate what I thought I heard you say about that, Jose. So just as an example, if you have a child in the court system regarding foster care in northern Indiana, which happens, and that's where you're a CASA, right, Pam?
Yes.
It would be possible for a foster family across the border in Michigan to provide that child from Indiana a safe foster home experience in a faster, more streamlined way.
Yes. I know CASAs are important. That's such an important organization. I mean, I know people that work and serve in that capacity, and I couldn't do it. It's just I would be heartbroken sometimes every single day, right? I'd take the stress of. I would want to bring them all home, and but you can't. But it's so God bless those that are those public servants that are serving in that capacity.
Well, and we have taken kids. I mean, my husband and I are both CASAs. We have had kids be fostered from here to New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a particular case, and we had trouble finding they are the CASA supervisors had a hard time finding him. They did find somebody in New Jersey. And so we do have kids that go to other places. And he ended up being adopted by them. So that was a good thing. Emily.
I have a question of if Jose knows, well, of course he'll know, where Senator Young stands on the border, that bipartisan border bill. Where did he stand on it? I know that it's been just neutralized for now, but where did he stand on that? Did he support the bipartisan bill?
So there was a bill that addressed funding for the border, or at least strengthening the southern border in a couple of different ways, but also
Yes.
provided funding to Ukraine, and so he supported that. He supported because he believes that he certainly believes in having a strong border, but he also still believes that we do what we can to support the people of Ukraine. And for example, in that particular, I know that was a lightning rod issue for many of those members of Congress there. So that if we're talking about the bill, and then ultimately former President Trump came out publicly against that bill, which kind of put sunk it, if you will, for lack of better terms. But he was a supporter.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I do have I'm looking at my time here. I do have a commitment. I'll have to be running to the federal court building here for this ceremony. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick.
I have a quick question. I was wondering how closely the senator works with the state legislators to make sure that Indiana is taking advantage of what the federal government has to offer. There's a lot of talk about, oh, the federal government is too big, but it seems like there's a lot of things that they're doing that we should be taking advantage of.
Fantastic question. He works very closely with the state legislature. As a matter of fact, our state director, who is the director of the whole state, is a state senator. And so he's a state senator down in the southern region of Indiana, but we work very closely with our state leaders down there in the assembly, in the state senate. He meets with the leaders of both chambers there, if you will. So we work very, very hand in hand with them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have, according to my clock, 2 more minutes for any more questions that anybody would like to ask Jose. Quick ones.
There are 4 in the chat.
Oh, wow. I did not. Let me.
One of those is mine and that you've already answered. So.
Oh.
I love what college are needed by this? Well, I enjoy my job very much. So this is one I just love seeing the growth and positive things come to light here in our state. It gives me an inside opportunity to learn and see how it would be helpful in some of these areas. So I try to look for opportunities to give some of our local leaders some extra help there. So I'm very active in that regard. So love it, enjoy it, and qualifications. It's just it varies really. Some with some education, some with some with a degree, but it really varies as far as I don't think there's any specific requirement from an education standpoint. But if you're involved, you're someone who is showcase, experience, they can, and are interested in congressional public service, I'm happy to be a resource to provide some insight in that regard. When Francis Scott Key Bridge shows damage reservoir fixed, but doesn't have, but funding have to be approved. I don't know the question to the one with I believe so, but I don't want to misspeak here as far as the Francis Scott Key Bridge and funding. I haven't heard any deliberations on the Congress to add to, or at least any specific bills that come to mind to provide funding. So I don't know. I know the president has pretty broad powers in getting resources that way. I don't know if it has a congressional check on that in some of those instances there. So I'd have to check on that one. Are housing bills passed or at other preliminary studies? Yes, housing bills have to go through the same process. Absolutely, you have to go through the same process. And then once say if something's introduced in the House, it's and it's passed out of committee, passed on the floor, it comes over to the Senate, and we have to do the same thing. And if there's any changes to that bill, it has to go through a whole other it has to not start over, but it does require, it may require additional votes. And it goes back to the House, and they have to go through and do it all over again in some instances. There again, legislation, there's different ways in which some of these things happen, but traditionally a bill passes out the House, goes to the Senate, has to pass out of the committee and onto the floor, and then eventually, if no changes are made to that bill, eventually that bill will arrive at the president's desk for approval.
I know you have to
I think
Clay's Candy, South Bend Chocolate Factory. Those are the two that are local.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Got it here.
And they will be, either one of those would be greatly appreciated by the members of Congress.
And the local business community.
And the local business, because those are both local. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jose, I think our time is up.
Yep.
And I want to thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. You've given us lots of good information and some information that we may want to follow up on too.
Yes.
And so thank you so much. We appreciate it. And good luck with all your work for Senator Young in the Congress. So
and enjoy your naturalization.
Yes. And we'll see you at the naturalization ceremonies. Right.
Thank you for your service to our country in both your military service with the Coast Guard and what you're currently doing. We appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure, and it is still my pleasure. So thank you all for the opportunity. I wish you all a fantastic weekend here, and I will be in touch.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for being here.
Yes.
And thank you, Melanie.